Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be talking about the movie Bone Lake, and I'm joined today by Andra Nechita. And one of the first things that I wanted to talk about was the tone of this movie, because Mercedes Bryce Morgan, I know, has kind of described how she really wanted it to be centralized as a horror film, but also have comedic elements and feel very, kind of like psychosexual throughout the movie as well. And that's a lot to play with as an actor. And I was interested in how that shaped the way that you were stepping into Sin as a character and thinking about her with the tone of the overall movie in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think right off the bat, Mercedes was it's so lovely to work with. We met and we were able to just really dive into the story and into Sin and who she is and her wants and her needs together. And I think that really informed where I should go as an actor from that point on. And then I think just after that, we were all, the cast and I, we were all in alignment that here we are in this really, heightened stake environment. And we still want to find, for me, it was important to find the humanity in Sin through it all and still at the end of the day, like find justifications for why she does what she does, regardless of how extreme some things are. And I think that just helped, just finding the truth in everything and just letting Mercedes and her artistic vision and the story speak for itself in terms of tone.
And one of the things with what you're describing there about really finding what is the truth of the character is really interesting to explore, because there's parts of her where she projects a version of herself. And then there's the question of how much of it is really true and which parts of it are. And so I was curious in, once you dug into the script, how you decided for yourself where you felt like the truth lay and who this character really was underneath.
I think finding that balance was the challenge, and it was such a fun challenge to take on because it is such a fine line, in my opinion, between leaning into this kind, empathetic, genuine, sweet girl, but then also into this more sinister, conniving, a little out of her, out of sorts type of character. And so it was a challenge to find that balance, but I think that's where I had the most fun, just really finding how much can I push it in this direction? How much can I push it in this direction? And that's something that I really just have to applaud Mercedes on. She crafted this environment where we could just fully trust each other and we could trust her vision and trust her to just have this place where we were able to lean in, to make choices, to have fun, to try really bold things. And then, she would tell us, hey, why don't you try it really drunk this time? And why don't you try it just really sinister this time? And so we had that freedom on set to really lean into so many different sides of the spectrum, if you will. And that was, I think that really helped.
And it's so wonderful when you get that opportunity to try different things and see what really fits and really works. Because in the final version of the film, we very much see the way that Sin ingratiates herself with Diego and with Sage being very different. With Sage, it's very much, the pretense of a friendship. And with Diego, it's kind of this physical confidence that she's kind of luring him in with. And were those initial ideas that you had, or were those things that you discovered from trying different things?
I think it was discovered, in part just getting to play off of Maddie and Marco. They brought so much to the table every day, so it really was this cat mouse with them. But then also just bringing in everything that I was able to build for Sin, from my own work on her, and then obviously from my conversations with Mercedes. It The more time went by, the easier it was to just really fit into her skin and just know, okay, I'm interacting with Diego. I know what I want out of you. I'm gonna lean into tempting you and seducing you. And then with Sage, it's, I'm gonna seduce you in a different way and like really find and nurture that friendship with you. But it was a surprise after a certain point because it just kept building on itself.
Right. And I've heard you say that you had a few nerves when you first read the character about really trying to figure out how to play her, because there's so many possibilities with the directions you could go in. But the second day of filming, you kind of felt like, okay, I'm really inside of her skin now. What was it about that day of shooting in particular that you just really felt like you were inhabiting it and finding a comfortability?
I think I struggle a lot with nerves. And so that's something I'm, working through. I think it's completely human nature to feel anxious, even if you're enjoying what you're doing. And I really am learning to give into that and just let that be part of the process. And so the first day, it was the pressure of having had only a 3-day turnaround between getting the part and then being on set on top of, oh my gosh, here's this character that terrifies me to no end because she's so opposite me. adding on the fact that I can't swim and I spend half the movie in water. But I think once we got through that first day and I shook off those nerves, it really helped. And, Pete and Mickey, two of our producers were so incredible. I mean, everyone was incredible to work with, but I remember just having a conversation with them at lunch, I think on that first day, and we just got really into it. And I told them I was using these animal exercises for the first time and like really leaning into, studying black widows and cobra snakes and panthers and whatnot. That's what I would do, on my time off. And so we found this conversation, this secret language between us where it was like, hey, here's like a gif of Jaws. Just take that, run with that. And so that I think gave me the confidence just to kind of tell myself, you know what, I'm good. Like, I'm with my people. I'm doing my thing. I'm in my element. Let's just lean into it and let's have fun. She's a challenging character to play, but that's where the growth is, and I want to throw myself into that.
That's so impressive that you had to jump into shooting this role just 3 days after. And I wanted to ask you about the rehearsals that you had, particularly with Alex Rowe, who plays Will, your boyfriend in the movie, because I've heard that that kind of really helped cement a lot of the backstory. And, off the back of hearing how quickly you got cast and thrown into production, were the rehearsals just in that couple of days interim period, or was it very much just little pieces when you could grab time on set?
We were very fortunate to have a week after we all arrived in Atlanta to kind of rehearse and familiarize ourselves with each other and just really become close. So that I think was a huge, huge help. Alex was the first person I met, and we met at a intimacy chemistry rehearsal type where we had Mercedes and our intimacy coordinator there, and we would hold hands and we were like dancing in circles and playing all these games to like just become, shake off the nerves. And then him and I got dinner and we wanted to just kind of, get to know each other, become friends, and like really build this backstory. And so we got Korean barbecue. So we had that to deal with as we were getting to know each other. And then I was like, hey, Alex, so I have this notes on my phone. It's 20 questions that I came up with. I'm just going to throw them at you rapid fire. I just want to like figure us out and who we are as a couple. And they were so, looking back now, it's funny. They were so weird. It was like, what's our song? What was our first song that we danced to? What do we do when it rains? What do we talk about when we go to bed at night? Like, and rest our head on the pillows. And I think that initial just one-on-one really gave us the opportunity to become in sync and to just create this secret language that over the duration of our shoot we knew and we could communicate. And it's like, okay, we're in this world with this other couple, but we also have these inside jokes that we've now built and we now believe and we're in sync. And Alex he was such a great partner to play off of, and I think that helped tremendously.
Right. I can completely see how helpful that would be through shooting, because what you were just describing about the communication between the two of them, there's also an entire dialogue existing between the two of them throughout the entire movie that's not spoken out loud
Yeah.
at all, but they're constantly communicating with one another. And so how did all of those exercises and just really help to create that silent language between the two of you?
I think it just really helped. It put us in a place where, we could have a moment of oh, we're sharing the same inside joke right now. It's not vocalized, it's not seen, but we're in on it. We know what's going on. And I think ultimately helped us more as characters to really lean into the fun, into the cat and mouse that our characters are having with this other couple. And so it became a game. We had so much fun doing it.
And with what you were describing about the work that you'd been doing as an actor already in terms of looking at different animal work for characters, did that really help you in thinking about the physical side of this character? Because she's very much someone who's very attuned with her body and knows how to use it to communicate with people.
It absolutely did. And I think that's why I wanted to lean into that. I had my other things and methods and, approaches. I made her a playlist. I wrote her a backstory. Like, I have all these other things that I like to do for every role, but I'd never really taken on animal exercises. And knowing that she's such a confident and free-spirited character who is not afraid to use her body to get what she wants, that I think had a big challenge. And that to me, really set the tone for, oh, she she has to lean into the physicality. She has to be so confident in her body. She has to use her body. It's like it's her weapon when she wants it to be. And so those really helped. I learned so much. Like I'd go home and it'd be like 2 a.m. and I'd be on YouTube, tiger going in for the hunt. It was some really graphic things I saw, but it did help. And I think it made me ultimately more confident in my own skin, which is something that I did take away after production. And so I'm grateful for that and getting to step into this crazy, free-spirited, like, seductress.
I love that, and it's also, that's not the only way that she kind of pulls people in. She's also very intellectual in the way that she approaches it. The way that she draws Diego in is also very much, kind of giving him the validation that she can see that he's desperately seeking and wants and maybe isn't getting enough of in his own relationship. And, what was that like, discovering the kind of intellectual way that she draws people into her web just as much?
I think that was a really fun part too, because again, I think initially you think, oh, Sin's this free-spirited, confident, childlike character, and that's where it goes and that's where it ends, and she uses her body and she knows that she's sexy and she's not afraid to lean into it. But I think pulling back the lens really let me see that no, there's more to that. And it was, again, justifying her and finding her humanity and building this intelligence for her. She's always 10 steps ahead of you. She knows where you're going before you even decide to go there. And I think that is her strongest skill. I would say more than her body, more than her physicality, because she knows how to manipulate and get inside your head. And she does it in a way where you don't think anything's happening. And that's what I loved. And it was so fun to lean into that and to really find this balance between how can I seduce Diego in a way that, gets under his skin, and not physically, but just mentally, and just is it's a little, fine needle combing through and setting things off course.
Because her offering him a potential leg up for his career is very much the reason why, when they have the opportunity to choose whether to stay or leave, they actually stay. And it's interesting too, because she also kind of like gives this validation to Sage, oh, I'm listening to everything that you're telling me, and I'm kind of really taking it seriously, but I'm also gossiping and telling you things that he said to me as a friend. And so how did you want Sin to kind of really create this questioning and this vulnerability in Sage with the things that she tells her under the guise of it being friendship?
It was so difficult because that, to me, I was like, wow, she's so two-faced. She's so two-faced, she's toying with somebody's man and then telling the woman that your man is coming on to me. So there was this, okay, that's weird. I personally wouldn't do that, but again, I'm not one to judge her actions. And I think that's where Mercedes really was so fantastic, because she, once again, gave us the freedom to explore both sides. So there's a scene where, the scene between Sin and Sage, and I'm like, hey, he saw me in a towel. We tried that, I think, 10 different ways. We tried it really drunk. We tried it, you want him, like you're coming after him and you're letting her know. We tried it, this is your best friend and you're letting her down really easily. And so having the freedom to just explore so many different avenues and just trusting Mercedes' vision and seeing how it all comes together in the edit, I think was ultimately, the thing.
I've also heard you say that one of the things that Mercedes did as a filmmaker that was really helpful to you as an actor is that she had incredibly detailed shot lists that she would show up to set with every single day. How did that really help formulate the idea of what you were stepping into each scene with the intention of?
Yeah, I've never worked on a project with a director who's had as in-depth of a shot list as Mercedes. I have to applaud her for it. It was phenomenal. I mean, every single shot of the film had a reference, and if it didn't have a reference, she would go in with our DP Nick Matthews, and film herself. And so we would either get like a reference or we'd get the actual shot, and it would be of Mercedes through the kitchen. It's like, this is what you're gonna do. And so every night when the call sheet would come in with the sides, we'd get the shots for the next day, so we knew, okay, this is the shot. Some of them, Marco and I, or Alex and I, or Maddie and I, we'd always be like, whoa, like that's gonna be an interesting shot. But it all came down to trust, and just trusting the wonderful people that were part of the production, trusting Mercedes, trusting Nick, and just being in the moment, trusting one another and having fun. And it all, I mean, but that preparation just helped so much as an actor.
One scene I can also imagine was probably quite fun to play around with the comedic sensibility, is the moment where you have Sin and Will and they're standing outside the door listening to the other couple arguing because they take so much joy from it. It kind of bolsters their own confidence, and the two of you kind of like break into a little dance. And,
Yeah.
I was interested in just the way that you kind of really played around with different options of their elation almost.
Yeah, I think that was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first scenes we shot where we were able to really lean into the other, crazier sides. Um, and that was just so much fun because that's where we kind of realized, oh, we can be unhinged. Like there's no extreme. Like let's just lean into it. Let's have fun. I think that's one of my favorite scenes because we were just twirling and dancing, and so much of that was just because we had this freedom to try new things and to explore. There's another scene where I'm twirling through the halls, on my quest for someone. I will not say who for spoilers' sake, but that was something that came in last minute. It was like, hey, what if I do like a ballet twirl throughout the house? Is that cool? And it's like, yeah, let's do it. And so that, again, just a testament to the kind of environment that Mercedes crafted for us.
And that idea of not necessarily having a line to limit how far you can go and being able to be really unhinged probably also played a lot into the horror thriller aspects later in the
Yeah.
movie, where, when Sin is under threat, it almost bolsters her. And there's this kind of psychological need, guttural instinct for survival in her. And so
Yeah.
how did that idea of I can be as unhinged as I want in the way that she's responding to attack play into those scenes?
I think that whole sequence was something that I really loved exploring because yes, up until that certain point, I was able to be so unhinged and free in my choices and like lean into the craziness and the confidence and the fun and the sexiness of it all. But then it gets to a point where yeah, it's survival. And if she's going to go to these extremes to tempt somebody, she's going to go to extremes to survive. And I think at the end of the day, like I'm sure I say this maybe for myself, but it's human nature to want to survive. And when everything that she knows and the people she loves, and the person she loves is at risk, she will go to any extreme. And I think being able to again know who she is at the core and having found her humanity, just regardless if I agree or don't agree with the things she did, which I don't, knowing who she was at the core, it's a woman who's terrified to lose the person she loves, a woman who doesn't want to die, and that just made it real. And it was like, yeah, let's lean into that. Like she wants to survive. She will do anything she needs to, and hurt anyone she needs to ensure her survival.
Do you think there's also a twisted part of her that really enjoys it because she's someone who very much gets off on pushing other people's buttons and really thrives on adrenaline as well?
I think so. I think it's all a game to her and Will. And I think seeing how far she can keep pushing it each time it's adrenaline. It pumps her adrenaline. It gets her going. I mean, that's why there's a bit where she's like, I'm feeling frisky. My adrenaline is pumping because she likes this game. She likes to see how far can we push it before things escalate. And even then, it's all under control because she's so trusting of herself, of Will, of her relationship, their relationship together. Like this is easy. It's like let's be unhinged. Let's push the boundaries.
Yeah. I know, and there's kind of this weird energy between Sin and Will where it's almost they're so desperate in trying to prove their own relationship that they feel like if there's a flaw in someone else's, that it bolsters them and makes them stronger. But did you actually also perceive that as like a real vulnerability in their relationship, that they feel such an incessant need to prove it?
I think so. I mean, without getting into the reveal of their relationship, I think at the end of the day, it's an insecurity for her. I think it was a huge insecurity that this is something that can never really get the respect that others do. And here's a couple standing before them and they're happy and merry-go-lucky, and it's like, why do you get to love each other and to support each other. I mean, look how easy it is for us to kind of get under your skin. Um, and I think that was a very sore point for her, just knowing that this love they share is faced ultimately with so many obstacles.
I know, and it's almost sad because when you look at the scenes between her and Sage, there's another world in which the two of them actually could have formed a friendship and a bond, and she could have also had a real friendship with Diego, and the two couples could have hung out a bunch together. And do you think, kind of going all the way back to childhood, that she's just kind of been insulated in this bubble and kind of never really been able to let her guard round anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, again, not justifying her actions or her choices or her behavior, but to me, was, she is the result of a really broken upbringing. She faced a lot of, trouble growing up and an abusive childhood of sorts, and obviously it continued to escalate. And the one person who was there for her is the only person that is there for her. So I think for me, it was really important to build this human that at the end of the day, she's lonely. She has the love of Will, but she doesn't have anything else. And yet she still is able to look at the world through this childlike wonder, through this excitement for life, because she has to. It's the only way she survived, is to just, get through it one way or another. But that was really important to me, just really understanding where she came from, and what her upbringing was.
And even with what you just described about, there is that side of her that has almost this childlike wonder. It also feels like she's someone who has a really wounded child that she's trying to figure out how to fix, but just doing it in all completely the wrong ways.
Wrong
What
way.
was that perspective that you had on just like the inner child in her that feels really hurt and really damaged and just can't move past it?
That's actually what I focused on so heavily during, my prep time. Again, my prep time was short, but that was something I really wanted to understand and dive into, her inner child. And her inner child who did not heal, her inner child who did have a broken relationship with her parents, who, just never belonged. And that inner child, again, is still within her, and it's there, and she's hurt and she's broken and she's carried a lot of weight. But I think ultimately it did lead her to do the things that she does and to become the person that she is. And it's probably the only way that she's received love and acceptance from other people, is by partaking in this twisted game, in this twisted, awful, awful thing that she does. It's the only time that she feels attention, she feels wanted, she knows that she has power, she has the control over other people, because her entire childhood she didn't have that. She was always the victim.
Absolutely. I also wanted to talk about the physical side of this performance as well, because you have to do quite a lot of extensive stunt work. And I know that you have quite a fear of water and have never even gone underwater before. And yet you're
Yes.
having to film, water scenes in a water tank, and you're also going underwater extensively while still performing in character. And so I was just interested in what that was like to kind of really overcome those inhibitions and fears in order to do it for the character.
I think it was, again, it was a lot of trust. I remember I got the part, and then it was a quick turnaround time. My manager and I got on a phone call, and she was like, why don't you try a swim lesson before you fly out? Just really quick. I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna do that. Like, oh my goodness. But so I didn't get to do a swim lesson, but I got there, and I was able to vocalize it right off the bat. And there was never a moment where I felt unsafe. And I think that was the biggest thing. I always had, people looking after me, taking care of me. And so, yeah, I'll jump in this lake. I might not jump in the lake, but I'll get in this lake for you. You can see me like really awkwardly getting into the lake. But I had so much trust in everyone that helped. And then the tank scene, we shot that in LA on a stage, and I went up to Mercedes and I had a prosthetic on. It was just, so there was so much going on. I was at Mercedes, I've never gone underwater before. I just wanted to let you know that. And she's like, you're gonna be safe. It's okay. Like, do only what you're comfortable with. Like, again, I felt so safe. There were people there holding me, holding onto my hands. And then at one point I was like, what would Sin do? I mean, Sin wouldn't get scared. And I think that was my motto for so many of these sequences and scenes. It was, what would Sin do? Sin would get under the water. She would scream and have fun and do what she needs to do because that's just who she is. So it was just channeling the confidence in her. And I went underwater and I had a blast. I was like, do you want me to go out again? Because I can do it again.
You'll be doing a sequel to Waterworld before we know it.
I know. I know. That's my joke, and that's the joke I have with my friends all the time. I'm like, guys, don't worry. One of these days, I'm gonna be like the Michael Phelps. You just wait and see. I'm gonna be a pro swimmer.
And also in talking about spoiler territory, there's a moment where there's kind of the reveal of the setup at the beginning, and then we see this whole sequence of events of what was Sin and Will doing before the other couple arrived at the house, and kind of seeing, okay, they were there the whole time, and this is kind of their MO and how they do everything. And I love how intertwined the two of them are, even with the scene with like the two of them brushing their teeth and their faces right next to each other. And so how did you and Alex set into like filming that sequence as kind of both a story setup, but also just showing how intertwined these two characters are in every step of life?
I think we just had so much fun doing those, and I think we shot them a little sporadically too. If I'm not mistaken, the one where we're brushing our teeth was quite early on, and so we were still in our, oh, we just got to know each other, but like we're on the same page. Let's like just run with it, and we're like, okay, let's brush our teeth. Let's brush our teeth with like a probe lens right in between our faces. But we were so on the same page and speaking the same language that we just leaned into it. It's like, let's do this. Let's have so much fun. And that's what it was. It was just this, it was us really leaning into our characters having so much fun. And we were just having fun. Like, yeah, let's run around with a suitcase and hide. And it was great.
Were there any moments throughout filming where you all had to kind of step back and make sure, yes, we're laying the groundwork so this all makes sense in terms of story, but we're also making sure that we don't give any of the reveals away too early for the audience at the same time?
Yeah, it was a balance to really find. It's a fine line, I think, between leaning too much that it gives everything away, but also planting little Easter eggs. And that's something that I personally really tried to do for Sin. I mean, even the proposal scene, there's a few shared glances in Will's direction that just subtle moments where if you go back for a second watch, it's like, oh, something was off. I just didn't clock it. But that was again just part of the experience, and it was great to lean into that and just to see how far can we push it. And that's where Mercedes, was such a help because she would tell us like push it a little more or scale back, and all of us together collectively we were speaking the same language after like the first week.
And it's almost incredibly smart to make a movie that people have to watch twice to get the full experience.
Exactly. And it's such a fun time. I want to watch it again.
Well, I really, really enjoyed your performance. So thank you so much for talking
Thank
about
you.
it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.